Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another weekend workshop today. We're so grateful to have you with us. And today we, of course, are talking about systematizing your business. And I have met with enough weekend clients at this point to know that getting organized and having systems is, for many of us, the bane of our existence, but it is the key that unlocks the door to business success in many ways. So I'm so excited to dive into this topic today with Amanda Fraser and Jenny Chandler, who are here today from Simple Desk. So welcome to everyone who has joined us on the call. I know that you're going to get a lot of value out of today's session. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie Ramsey, and I am the project manager for the Weekend Project, which is led by Queen's University and funded by FedDev Ontario through the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund. And it is a pleasure today to bring you what is about our 80th virtual workshop now, I think, since COVID began. I'm excited to announce that, of course, we will have our first in-person engagement, really more of a networking event in May. So I'll be dropping some information about upcoming events into the Zoom chat. Why don't you take a moment, speaking of the Zoom chat, just to let us know where you're connecting to this workshop from today. We'd love to hear what corner of the world you're connecting from. And while you do that, I'll take a moment to acknowledge that I am connecting to this workshop from the Bay of Quinte region, which is the unceded territory of the Huron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And as a white settler to Canada, I acknowledge that the First Nations people were here before we were. And I think that's an important part of the truth and reconciliation process, is that we, think about that. And of course, as we are beginning today's workshop, some of you may be aware of the traditional lands upon which you stand on and live, work, and play. So if you'd like to share those with us in the Zoom chat as well, please feel free. All right, so I'm excited to thank you so much for everyone who's sharing in the Zoom chat. It is great to have you with us. I think we're ready to get started. We just want to dive into this topic. Amanda and Jenny, organize our lives, systematize us, because we need your help today. So let's go ahead and get started. Jenny, I believe I'm handing you the virtual microphone to get started.
Yes, that's me. So welcome everybody to Systemizing Your Business. Amanda, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm Jenny Chandler, and Amanda Fraser is our project manager here at Simple Desk. So we're a team of 5, I believe. Oh my goodness. And we are basically a small business support company, and we help you with all your many hats. Is basically how it works. And we try to take the overwhelm out of being a business owner. So if you want to go ahead and just drop your business name in the in the chat and let us know, do you have any systems in your business already? And maybe what type? Are you a service or a product-based business?
And just as they're doing that, Jenny, maybe you want to give an example of a system. Maybe they're not sure exactly what that means.
Okay.
I'm just like looking at this from a layperson's term. I know the first time you explained it to me, I was like, oh, that's a system.
So a system could be your onboarding system. So let's say you have a new client. What is the process that your client goes through when they come on to your business? So let's say we first send them their contract. Once their contract is signed, we send them an onboarding survey. So we have all their information. And next, we would create a kickoff meeting. And then after we have that client kicked off, we want to send them a thank you in the mail. That's our next step. And then the step after that is, getting into the work. And there's also a follow-up, checking in to make sure that they're getting everything that they need and they signed up for. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of one. Bow tied. Oh, Heather, bow tied with love. Yep. You have systems in QuickBooks, and it uses Google Sheets and Google Drive. Google is your friend. I have to say. Artfully recycled. Awesome. Product-based, service-based. Okay. So yeah, we've got a lot of different things going on.
Sounds like we have a mix, eh?
Yes, we do. So did you want to just go to the next slide there, Amanda?
Yeah, we can go ahead and start.
So Amanda's just going to take over, and she's going to let you know what we're gonna learn today, and take it away, Amanda.
Well, welcome. I get really passionate about this subject, so I'm really excited that you guys are here to share that with me today. So what we're going to learn, we're going to talk about what a business system is. We'll go into a bit more detail. We'll talk about the benefits of having those systems. And then we'll talk about how to start. So how to identify the core tasks that you should focus on first, as well as how to create them and where to put them once you have them, because that's also another key part to make sure you get all the benefits of systemizing your business. Oh, sorry, went the wrong way. So first of all, what is a business system? A business system is a procedure, process, or method designed to achieve a specific result. So that sounds like a pretty broad definition, doesn't it? The good news is you probably already have much of this in place without even trying, without even knowing it. There's probably a certain way you do things in your business to get the result that you want. So we're not starting from scratch. You already have a base of processes or procedures or ways that you do things. But what we're going to talk about is how to document those and kind of optimize them, and kind of write them down so that you're more aware of what you have and where you need to improve, what other systems you need to put in place to realize the benefits of the whole package kind of thing. So a quick statistic, 90% of businesses never make it, largely due to the lack of clearly defined procedures for common tasks. So a lot of small businesses, when they start out, it's a passion project. And once they start to grow, the regular procedures for common tasks, they kind of take over, and it just becomes too big. And without the defined systems and processes in place, unfortunately, a lot of the small businesses don't make it through that. So I'll talk about the benefits a little deeper. So strategy is the first and foremost, it's the biggest one in my opinion, because as a small business owner, you always want to be driving your business. So you don't want to get caught up in the day-to-day and have zero time and energy left for the strategy piece. So having systems in place allows the day-to-day things to happen kind of seamlessly without your help, or without your constant care and attention rather, so that you can take the time to, realize opportunities that come up, like to see them. If you're head down in the day-to-day operations, you won't see those opportunities that are presenting themselves to you right in front of you, So strategy is probably the most important one. Number two, efficiency. So if you think about it, the way you're doing things now, you may have a system or procedure. It may not get done exactly the same way. It may take a little longer to complete. If you had a checklist in front of you for that system that you're kind of following, you could get things done a lot more quickly and efficiently, right? You have a checklist and you check, and it's done, and you're not wasting your time thinking about, did something fall through the cracks? Did I complete this the way I want to? Is there something I need to improve upon? Is that task actually done? We tend to kind of get lost in those details and spin our wheels, and we're not super efficient. But with the system in place, you can reap a lot more efficiency. Consistency. So your customers will get a consistent experience. If you have a set procedure that you follow, your customers will see that, and they'll get the same gold standard of service every time they come to you. And then if you grow and you have an assistant or you grow your team, if they follow the same set of procedures that you have laid out as the gold standard on how to treat your customers or what your company stands for, your customers will get that standard every time. And they'll notice, they'll come back for more because they know what to expect. The last one is value. So a well-systemized business are the most valuable businesses. They're running quickly, efficiently, consistently. They're a well-oiled machine. So they're more valuable to you as the business owner, but also in the future, if you're thinking about selling, investors can see when you have a well systemized business, they can have confidence that the system runs without everything that's in the entrepreneur's head, right? So they're purchasing a fully functioning system instead of one person or a few key people that have the knowledge in their minds. So those are the main benefits of, or the biggest benefits of having a fully systemized business. I always like to throw in the example of if you planned your meals, like in meal planning, you planned your meals for the week, and you go to the grocery store and you try to get all of the ingredients. If you don't have a system for that, if you don't make your list and take it with you and check them off as you go, how many items do you think you're going to forget? You know, on Tuesday when you go to make your meal and you don't have a couple of the ingredients, and then you got to run out to the store again. So for me, I see running your business, it's kind of the way I run my life, actually. But having these systems in place certainly helps you get the most value out of your time, really. I will say that systemizing your business, it might not be complicated, but it is a little bit time consuming, and it can be very detail oriented. And if you're not a detail oriented person, it might seem like just the biggest mountain. So if anything, any of the benefits that we just talked about resonate with you, write them down, write them down so that you can look at them later and remind yourself, this is the goal. This is why I'm working so hard to systemize my business, because I'm going to achieve this level. I'm going to focus on the strategy, or I'm going to provide such consistent service to my customers. So if something resonated with you, please write it down so that you can kind of remind yourself as you need motivation on your journey to systemize your business. So when we're talking about, yeah, systemizing is good. If I haven't convinced you yet, then I'm not sure how. But where do we start? Where do we start? So we can talk about the theory of why systems are good, but how do we start? How do we get there? So it's important to focus on your core tasks first, because you could systemize, secondary tasks in your business that won't have the biggest impact, or you can focus on the big things that matter most and see the benefits right away and let that trickle through to the secondary and tertiary tasks. So what are my core tasks? How do I identify them, and where do I start? So if you follow your customer's journey on how they interact with your business, so advertising is how you reach your customers. Sales is how do your customers reach out to you? Client onboarding would be how do you, so I guess sales, when you convert them from considering your product or service to committing to buying from you, and how do you treat them to onboard them, especially in the service industry, that's super important. And then on to product and service delivery. How do you get your product or service to them? What's involved in that? And do you have repeat business or a referral program in place to encourage them to come back? So that's basically your customer's journey on how they interact with you or your brand throughout the process. Once you write down a few of those in each category and just think about high level, what happens, you can convert them to departments. Even if you're a solopreneur, it's good to divide your tasks into these departments because they each have their own role in the process. So marketing, sales, operations, and the administrative tasks that help all of that go smoothly. If there's any questions, I invite you to write them in the chat. I think Jenny's going to monitor the chat there. So if there's any questions up until now, just let me know. I can stop and explain anything if there's anything that's not clear.
I would like to mention what Heather wrote about planning her meals for the year.
For the year?
Yeah. Way to go.
That's Heather. Amazing.
Any questions, anybody, before we move on? Nope.
righty.
I'll cut in if there is.
Yes, please do, Jenny.
Okay.
So this is a high level, just a bit of a graphic to, I guess, open your mind to see like where do I have systems and where can I have systems? So this also kind of follows customer journey. So every business should have some kind of marketing plan, some kind of sales plan, operations, and administration and management. So you may have lots of systems in each of these categories, or just a few in each of these categories. But this kind of gives you a bird's eye view, like an overview of the types of systems that can help your business thrive. You may not, like in some businesses, some will be more important than others. Like the weight on each of them will be a little bit different as your unique business has unique needs. But this is a good reference to come back to if you're wondering where you can up your systems game.
Amanda, can I just ask a question? I know you have a PDF or a form that's going to be available that folks can get from you later. Is this one of them? Because this, I think, is something needs to be on our wall.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Great. So yeah, at the end, I'll have my email address. And if you'd like the package of handouts, just shoot me an email. I think I can send you the package. I think there's like an email list to get on as well, but this is definitely one of them in the package because I think it's super important as well.
Oh, agree. And also, man, I don't know if your mic is just slightly away from your mouth. You just might want to slightly reposition it. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, no, this chart is, when I first saw it, I was like, give me this chart, and it's yeah, thanks.
So Carrie, is it better now? I just adjusted it a little bit. Okay. Make sure that's in there. All right, let's move on here. So how to create systems. So now that we kind of have it in our mind as to where we need to draw our focus to, where we need to start creating systems. Now we're looking at a blank page. What do we do? The first thing you want to do is define your clear objective. So using the example that Jenny provided in the beginning to say, okay, so I've got a client, they've committed. Now what? How am I going to do this consistently every time? So the clear objective would be, I'm going to onboard clients. This is how I get them from signed contract to deliverables sent and complete, project complete. You want to document the steps. So when you're first doing this, when you're first documenting it, you'll find that it can be a little bit of a brainstorming session because you may not do them in the right or the same order or the most effective order currently. So if you write down all the things that you do, or all the things that are important, all the things that come to mind that are related to that clear objective, then you can put them in order to say this makes the most sense to do it this way, and these are the key pieces of information that need to happen in this order. So it doesn't need to be in order right away, but that's the end goal, is to have a system so that if you hired a virtual assistant to say, we need to onboard this client, you're going to want them to be able to go down the checklist and complete the task for you. Basically, that's how systemized, or that's how detail oriented you want to be in this part here. And add helpful material. So again, using that same example, you could have, so you have the contract, you could have a draft email that has all the information and you just change and personalize it. You could have the draft survey result, like the survey that you send at the end to say, how is your service? Is there anything we could do, anything you could do better? You want to send out the same thing every time. So the helpful material would be any of those resources, checklists, templates, any of those things. If you have them together and kind of like embedded right into the system itself, then it's going to be easier to use and more likely to be used every time that you complete that task. I will also mention, working with quite a few entrepreneurs, working in pairs is best. This is such a daunting task to do yourself because much of it is second nature to you and it's in your head. But if you work in pairs, you can get a friend or a colleague or somebody and work together to get this done. It goes way faster and way more smoothly. And then you can also say, this is what I have so far, and give it to them and see if they can work through it and they can identify the gaps in the processes that can be filled in. So here's the example of creating a system. We've got your clear objective, client onboarding, the instructions in step-by-step process. So 1, send the welcome email and the invoice. So that's if you're invoicing ahead of time. Schedule the strategy meeting, outline the process to complete contracted work. So you want to maintain a good good lines of communication with your client to say this is the timelines we're working with, and this is what you can expect at each step of the way. Send the deliverables before the deadline. Send client testimonial questionnaire. You want to send to make sure that they received the deliverables, that they were happy with everything, and maybe complete a questionnaire. And perhaps you can use that testimonial on your website or other promotional material. The extra resources in this would be the email and invoice template, and perhaps the questionnaire template, or the link to the survey. If you have like SurveyMonkey or something, you can have a link to that in there so that you can send that to your clients when you've finished sending them their deliverables. The last thing you want to have is a revision date, or something to say that you've updated it, like this is version 1 or this is version 2, or something to say that this is still an active process that I use. So we can go through another example. If somebody wants to drop in the chat, maybe a process that popped into their head as we were going through this, something that was top of mind to say, oh, I should do a process for that, or oh, I have a process for that. If anybody wants to share that in the chat, we can quickly go over that and yeah, help our fellow attendees here.
Oh, the comments are making me laugh. Someone is crying with relief now that they see there is a process. I don't know if you noticed, Selena Martin has mentioned a purchasing process. And Selena, perhaps you need more information, but I know it might take folks a couple of minutes just to type out some of those processes.
So I will mention, yeah, with things like purchasing, you might have something like you're researching into the products that you need. You might have a way that you record, like you want it to align with your cash flow. So you might have like you research it, you see the price, you plan it out, like when you're going to purchase it, and a way to pay that invoice, maybe a system to track the invoices when you've paid them and how you file them. Whatever your business needs to stay organized, those steps should be in there.
Sure, go ahead. Selena's just asking to unmute. Go ahead and give us a couple more details, Selena.
Yeah, I think I actually have a question. Can the process be from the customer's perspective? So let's say, so I have a process when I'm looking for a product, for example, but what if my customers on their website, they go through an online process as well? So are we talking more individual business needs, or is it also from the consumer customer perspective as well?
That is an excellent question. So when you start out, you do want to think about from the customer's perspective, right? Because you're here to serve your customers. They are the most important thing in your business. So that's an excellent point. When you look at the advertising, the sales, when you look at all that, you always want to look at it from your customer's point of view to say, how is that going to affect them? And how can I make this journey the least amount of steps and the most amount of like care and attention? Like, how can I make that work the best for them? So absolutely, when you're so like that's like the starting point, right? Like that's how you want your business to face your customer. But there's so much that happens in the background in order to make that happen. So that's kind of what we're talking about, is having these systems in place in the background so that that's what your customer sees. You give them the best customer journey that you can. Does that make sense?
Can I just cut in on that, Amanda?
Yeah.
We actually have a client journey template from the customer service webinar that I did. So the customer journey is actually going to be part of your marketing piece, I believe. And so when you set up your website, like this is how we set it up, this is how we want our client to feel and go through the steps. So we can add that into the package too for everyone.
I'll make a note of that, Jenny, to add that to the.
There have never been a group of people so excited about systems on a Thursday morning than this group right here. Just saying.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, Selena, when that mentality is going to kind of permeate at each step of the customer journey, because as Jenny mentioned, that like when you're setting up your website, you're thinking, okay, how do I search for products that I want to buy, right? You want all the information and you want the least amount of clicks. You don't want to dig for things that you need. So when you're setting up your website with your customer in mind, you're going to implement those things, right? So I think that's an excellent point. All right, I will go ahead and move on. Jenny, was there anything else in the chat to do a system, or?
There's not, I think that's it for the systems piece.
Okay.
Some of them are asking, suggesting, if we'll be suggesting relationship management tools. We have a few, I think, that we'll go over at the end. So yes.
Yeah, so stay tuned. All right. So as I mentioned in the beginning, once you have some of these systems, you don't want to put them in a manual to collect dust. You want to have them somewhere that you're going to use them. So whether you're a paper person or a computer person in terms of checklists and what you use on a day-to-day, if you have a paper calendar, you might want to print out these systems. If you do everything on the computer, then certainly choose a central location where you work from anyway. So if you use your Google Drive, if you use OneDrive, or if you store things on your computer, choose a central location to store your systems and your templates so that you have them all in one place. Divide the folders by department. So even if you're a solopreneur, it's really helpful to divide things by department, and that keeps it streamlined in the sense that you know that if you're working on a marketing product or a process, you know where to go. And if you have your team, like if you're building up a team or if you're hiring a virtual assistant, they can have access to the folders that they need access to, and everything will be well organized and easy for them to do their job. And use a consistent.
Sorry, can I just break in with Christine's question? Because I'm not sure if you mentioned Google Docs, but there's a question around the security aspect of using that as a tool. I know you've mentioned it so far.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one to maybe address as we go.
Absolutely. There's different ways, I guess, to use your file structure. If you have sensitive information that you don't want stored on the cloud, I would definitely store those locally on your computer if that's possible. If you're one person, if you don't have a team that you need to share with, sensitive information, I would just keep on your keep with you without sending it to the cloud. So Google Docs, I find Google the easiest to work with, but it's certainly not quite as robust in security features as something like OneDrive, where you can have a bit more control over the security. And there's just a bit more, what do I want to say? Yeah, just a few more layers of security. So that's not my expertise as to like information protection in terms of storing things on the cloud. So if there is sensitive information, I would say definitely take the measures you need to protect it and don't just willy-nilly it. That's a good point. But you also want to use a consistent file structure. So if you use different, like we use Canva, so the file structure in Canva should kind of mirror the file structure that you set up on your Google Drive or on your OneDrive or wherever you store your content. It's just a good idea to have things so that the way your brain works, right? Like whether you're going into images or copy, you want it to kind of be laid out in the same way so that you can find things quickly and easily. So I just have a bit of a file structure example here. Everybody's different, so it can obviously be tweaked, but here's a good example of how to divide it up. So your collection box, items that don't have a home yet, this is huge. I don't know, I can't remember when this was introduced to me, but this is huge. And I've actually ported this to all areas of my life. When things come in the door in my house, I have a collection box. And then when I have time, I sort through it and put it into its permanent home. But now nothing gets lost, right? So if you don't know where something goes yet, if you're working on something and you're not sure where to store it yet, have a collection box. And then you can set aside time every week to go through it to make sure it has a permanent home, or if you don't need it anymore, that it gets filed away. Your marketing, sales, operations, admin, that's where you would keep that's where I would keep the systems. And again, the legal, finance, payroll, the administration is kind of the very internal documents and information that you would keep. And to kind of touch on the security piece of that, perhaps those would be one of the more important ones to have on your desktop and maybe not in the cloud if you're worried. So yeah, this is also included in the package of freebies to have at the end. Are there any questions with file structure? Not so far. Alrighty, I was going to give you a quick look on Google Drive here to show you how I've set up the test one. Wake up my notes here. So just got a test one. So here we've got the collection boxes here. We've got admin, marketing, operations, sales. We've got a team folder. If you're working by yourself or with a small team, the collection box is probably all you need. But for larger teams, if they each have a personal folder, that always helps too. So when you go into the admin, you would have your finance, legal, reports. So if you wanted to look at your reports every month to say, how am I doing with this or with that? Systems and processes, anything tax related, you can, as you get them, stick them into that folder, and you would have everything in one place come tax time. So that's how I would set it up. Of course, each business is a little different, and yeah, you can set it up the way that works for you. All right, I'm going to try to get back to my, see if it'll show up here. There we go. So that's just a quick example of how you could set it up in Google Drive, and you could do the same thing in OneDrive, or even on your computer. You could have a folder that's specifically for your business, because I know a lot of times as entrepreneurs, business and personal get kind of intertwined at the beginning. You could have a business folder on your computer and set it up kind of the way we indicated there. So potential obstacles. What I've noticed is that time constraints as a small business owner or a starting entrepreneur, time seems to be one of those things that's in short supply. So, you know, you're working on your business, and it seems like systemizing your business is like a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. And it takes, you know, usually 2 or 3 months to see the full effects of systemizing your business. So sometimes it's hard to focus on it and commit to it. And it can get overwhelming because there's so many details. So those are the potential obstacles. But if you know that in advance, you can look back to your remember why, or your sticky notes, or whatever you wrote down to say, this is the benefit that I'm going to achieve from systemizing my business. You can kind of overcome some of the overwhelm, and just setting aside time. Rome wasn't built in a day. And so if you just commit to a couple hours each week to working on your systems, you can see your progress, and it'll just kind of motivate you to keep going. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but it is really important for your business to thrive. And on that note, you should also measure your success, because when you put that much effort into something and you can see the numbers and how they're going up, it motivates you to keep going. So certainly measure your success. This template is also in the handouts. So you might want to, you put the month, measure each month, or however, whatever cycle works for you, but you want to measure your clients or maybe your sales, or maybe you're focused on expenses because maybe that's where the inefficiencies are in your business. Maybe you're working on referrals. Maybe you want to implement a referral program and you want to see how that's doing, how that's working. The engagement, maybe you're wondering, I've put changes to my website, or I've started doing a blog and I want to see the effects of that. Or maybe I just want to implement a system to advertise my blogs or advertise the freebies on my site. How is that working? How is that working for me? So you can see in the numbers after 3 months to be like, this is working, this is actually working, and where can I improve? So it is important to measure your success. And this is not an exhaustive list of key performance indicators, but it is a good starting point. So if you've not measured your performance indicators month over month, this is a good place to start. And of course, add in anything that is unique to your business. So it would be a shame to have a systems webinar and leave out task management because this is a good piece to incorporate. So I'll just talk about the Kanban method. Has everybody heard about the Kanban method or have worked with the Kanban method? Just drop it in the chat, let me know. The idea behind it is that you go from idea, you move it to I'm doing it, sorry, to do, doing, and done. So you kind of move your task along its journey from the idea stage to I did it stage. And it's, if you use the Kanban method for all the things in your business, you'll have one place to overlook and see your ideas, see how many things you've committed to, and you can see all the things that you have done. So the way I use it is you have in Trello, you have a backlog of ideas or a backlog of things that need to happen. Then you look at it and you commit to doing something. So you can schedule time for it. You create action steps so that you really understand the kind of commitment that idea is going to take. And so once you've scheduled it, you've committed it, okay, I'm going to start working on that this week. And you move it to the in progress, list. And you can see the list of projects that you're currently working on. And when you complete it, you move it to the done. So the benefit of this is that you see how many projects you're working on at one time. You see if there's something that's hanging out in the in progress list for a little too long, then you can make changes. You can decide whether it's something you still want to commit to, or if it's like that nagging reminder that I need to get on this to finish this and move on. So the Kanban method is a really great way to see your projects through to completion and have a good overview of what your week or month is looking like as you open that up every morning. It's kind of like your to-do list, but you see everything. And it actually started, this method started, I think it was a Toyota plant or something, and it was just basically a big whiteboard. They wrote things on sticky notes and literally moved the sticky note to each column on its journey. Like the sticky note went on its own customer journey through to completion. So I'll also talk about checklists because I love this feature in Trello, and I'm sure it's part of lots of other project management and task management softwares as well, so that you can see each idea or each project or each task will have lots of subtasks. And so when something's hanging out in the in progress list for a while, it's nice to see that, okay, it started off as 0 out of 10, and now I've completed 5 out of the 10 steps. And you can track your project and see where you're at. And if you have to jump away from your desk and come back, you see exactly where you are in the task and where you left off. And you can kind of pick up and go a little more quickly. So down here, you'll see at the bottom that I've added some checklists, and you can add that to whatever. I mean, you don't have to use a project management software to do this. This just could be, again, if you're a paper and pencil kind of person, that works as well. But certainly breaking down your tasks into subtasks is a really important part of managing yourself, because it makes things more manageable. Like it makes things like feel a little easier. You just get a little less overwhelmed by just the big task if you break it down into little chunks. And so a few other helpful things to save you time, email automations. So if you have a system where you send automatic emails, so if they book a meeting with you, for example, that can save you time. You can flag to receive a reminder follow-up. So if you've sent out an email to a client or a potential client, and you want to make note to say, in 3 days, I will follow up with them if they have not responded, you can put in Outlook or in Google, you can put a little flag on that to remind you in 3 days to say, hey, follow up with client B. And there's also lots of ways to sort your inbox with different rules so that it'll automatically keep your inbox to a manageable level. There's also ways, I have a whole email system. If we have time, I'll get into it, but there's ways to set up your inbox so that it's working for you. If you follow the same system every time, then you can be sure that you won't forget about an email, or a task won't get unaccounted for. And I did want to mention scheduling applications. If you have a schedule-based business, like if people are booking meetings or coaching sessions or anything like that, Calendly, there's other ones on the market now too, but I find Calendly works really well. That just makes it easy to set up Zoom meetings with people without going back and forth. Are you available Friday at 10? Oh, how about Monday at 2? It can really streamline that process, and that's been a huge benefit. So, who's feeling excited about systemizing their business? Is there anything? Just drop in the chat. Is there anything you want to share? Anything that has stood out to you, or anything that you're worried about, for example?
Some folks are sharing some of the tools that they use as well, and that's always helpful to see just from the group what's working from them. I know you mentioned Trello, so I put that in the chat. TidyCal is one. I don't know if you mentioned Calendly, but that I know is a popular one. There's a question there, Amanda. Is Trello free? Maybe you want to address that.
Yeah, so Trello has free and paid versions. They've gone through lots of iterations. There was a free version, but you only got a certain number of power-ups, and it was a little bit confusing for a while. But as of last year, they've removed a lot of the limitations for the free version. So you can have part of the free version. I think you can have like 10 boards and unlimited power-ups and unlimited lists. And it's quite robust for the free version. And so if you're less than a team of 5, the free version is more than enough. More than enough, yeah.
Yeah, Amy's relating it to having clutter around your house. And I don't know about you, Amy, but for me, when I see the clutter, it stresses me out. So this is another part of a way we can reduce our business stress, even though it takes some setup time at the beginning. The idea is that it can actually reduce stress over time, which I think we all could use a little bit more of that.
Absolutely, that is huge. Because I was reading something about business owners and kind of getting into the zone, right? Like we can get into the zone and do our best work. But if you have the clutter, whether it's digital clutter, house clutter, your surroundings, whatever, there's clutter that prevents us from getting into the zone. So over time, we get less and less time in our like magical mind space where we can do our best work. So systemizing is absolutely a way to maximize your creativity and your passion, and really do the important work for your business. Take the mundane stuff and make it run smoothly so that you can be the master strategist of your business.
There's a question in the chat from Christine. What's the difference between Outlook and Trello? I think the idea here is it doing the same job? Like she doesn't want to do use a tool that's just going to complicate Outlook. So could you just explain the difference between them?
Yeah. So Outlook, I'll go back to that slide just a second. So Outlook is your email, right? Like it's the way you receive emails and send emails. Trello is something, sorry. Trello is a project or task management tool that you manually input things in and move your tasks along a journey. So it's not, you're not really interacting with your clients, like you're not sending emails through this. This is just your planning. So it's almost like it's your personal to-do list. The way I use them together, if I get an email and it's a task that I need to action, I either, if it takes less than 2 minutes, do it right away, file the email. It doesn't need to go in Trello. If this is a task that I can't do right now, that I need to remember to do later, if it takes more than 2 minutes or more than 10 minutes, whatever it is, I actually put that task, I just write a quick note, put that task on my to-do list in Trello, file the email to, I need to action this. And then when I set aside time during that week to answer emails or to tackle those things, I see in Trello, I need to do this, this, and this. I complete them. And in the email system, then I would take that email and file it away to say I no longer need to action that item. So email is just a way for, communication. That's how I use it. Email just for communication and for the calendar to see when I have meetings and things like that. But Trello I really use for my productivity and keeping track of my tasks.
I can see where Christine's coming from, because I know a lot of people who use Outlook to list their to-do items. It's just like, and then they move them around the idea of Outlook though is it's an email system. So it's not really set up to manage your task list. And so Trello, that really is. So it's kind of two very different functions. Yeah, thanks for explaining that a bit, Amanda. It helps.
I will add though that Outlook is trying to compete with functionalities such as this. So there is, if you have the desktop version, the cloud or what do you call the browser version is not quite as robust or not quite as integrated, but Outlook is trying to compete in this market by having you can add your email to a task list and it puts it on your to-do and you can switch it around. I found it a bit more cumbersome and a bit more complicated, and I wasn't confident that I was keeping track of everything, because if you put something on your task list and the day passes, it doesn't automatically bring it forward in some situations. So I found Trello easier to work with, and I use Outlook just as a communication tool. Are there any more questions? If there's no more questions, I will end with that I think really ties this up. What makes people work is an idea worth working for, along with a clear understanding of what needs to be done. So you have your passion, your idea worth working for, and systems is just providing a clear understanding of what needs to be done to accomplish that. So that's from Michael Gerber in his book, The E-Myth Revisited. I think he was one of the first authors to really dive into this whole systemizing your small business. And yeah, it's worth a read for sure. I think it's also available in audiobook, but it's a good one. So if there's no more questions, again, I'd like to thank you guys for coming today. I get pretty passionate about this subject, and I'm just so excited to share it and to hear ideas and to just discuss it. There's always improvements to be made. And as you can see, my email is on there, amanda@simpledesk.ca. If you shoot me an email afterwards, I will get the document or the package of handouts to you. But I will have to add in the customer journey one that Jenny had mentioned earlier, so I can gather that for you and send you the handouts. Just shoot me an email.
Excellent. Such great information. And so we do have time for Q&A, so I don't want to rush anyone. I know some folks might have to drop off the call, but either jot down your questions as I'm chatting if you want in the Zoom chat, or make a note. We'll go off of mute if we need to. Sometimes we learn a lot from other people's questions as well, which I love when you attend the live sessions. I know sometimes it's more convenient to watch the video later, but it's great if you actually have some live questions, and then we can learn from each other. And I do want to mention, as I was teasing out my announcement, and I just like to have fun in these, but there is an actual announcement that I wanted to make today. It's in the early stage, so you folks are the first to hear it. But as we're going through and these questions are coming up and you're wishing, I wish that Amanda could sit down with me one-on-one and look at my systems and help me set these up. Did anybody have that thought? I wish you just could come over to my house and do that. So the Weekend Project is going to be launching a 5-week program with Simple Desk, including Amanda and Jenny, and we're opening it up for 10 women who will be able to receive 1 hour of training. So you've gotten an hour today, and think about how much you learned. They're actually going to focus in on 5 different topics over 5 weeks and provide some one-on-one coaching. There's a limited number of hours, but we're doing it all within what's called the Simplified Systems program. Now, I'm not ready to announce, I'm only telling you guys, you're the first ones to know. It just was approved yesterday. And so once it is ready to go, it will be in the e-newsletter. All right, everyone. So I'm going to put my email in to the chat. Most of you are probably on my weekly e-newsletter, but if you're not, it's a great place, first of all, to find out about the new programs like the one I'm talking about. So you can be the first to apply. Now, remember that there's 10 spots. So we do prioritize underrepresented groups of women. And so I can explain to you offline what that means, but that's because we're mandated by the federal government to do so. And so I know it's going to be a full session. And so basically, once that program is announced, it will be in the newsletter. Of course, it will be on our social media as well. But if you haven't yet signed up, do reach out to me. I'll put you on that weekly email list so that you don't miss an announcement like that one, or another program, which we also had approved yesterday, which I'm also excited to soon announce. So that's the news. And so I don't know anything better than getting, a little bit deeper into this and getting their Jenny and Amanda's eyes on your business to help you simplify, create, set up, help you fill out those forms. Like, it is absolute gold. Of course, there is no cost, right? There is no cost to any of our programs and services, thanks to FedDev Ontario, which funds us. However, of course, if you would like to, and I'll just do the sales pitch, but it's really a natural progression. If you are like, no, I want to start right now, like tomorrow, and I will happily pay, then clearly you can hire Simple Desk to help you with that. All right. So I'm just talking about a program that's going to be free. We haven't set the date yet, and it's not going to be next week, I'll be honest. So you can start on this. That's what I strongly encourage you, is don't let this go by the wayside. Start working on what has been presented to you today. And once you get these free resources that Amanda has offered you, there's her email, then you can start today. But we're going to allow you to go a lot more deeper with Simple Desk through the program that's coming called Simplified Systems. I'm so excited for it. I might even be a fly on the wall in that one. We'll see. We'll see if they let me do that. All right. So some of you, hopefully you've had a moment to just think if you have any other questions. I like the Fred Flintstone response down there. That's awesome. Any questions that anyone might have as we're nearing the end? I'll turn it back over to you, Amanda.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So I'm still on the Trello. So if your emails are coming in through Outlook, and like I normally will flag them if I need something, if I can't action it right away. I mean, I get so many, I'll flag it with the red flag, and that never goes away. So I'll always drill down to see what's there. If I have to diarize it, I do that in Outlook. If I was to use Trello, I don't know anything about Trello. Can you just simply add it to Trello? Are they like integrated?
So that's a good question. So this
Or
is
do you
the way
have to go and separately add it into Trello, like as another step of work?
So actually you can set it up so that you have a unique email address that sends it to Trello. So if you get an email and you're like, oh, I need to put this on my to-do list and I really want it in Trello, you forward it to that unique email address and it will pop right onto your to-do list in Trello. So that is a quick and easy way to do that. However, if that's just an extra step, if it's a small task, like you may not need to do that. If your system is working for you where you flag it and deal with it that way, like if it's a quick 10 minutes, you don't need to set up, you don't need to add it to more to-do lists, then keep the system that's working for you. But there is a way in Trello to add those things to your board. I will recommend, though, there's in your email, when you get emails in, I would have folders that you send it to. So if it's requires action, if it's awaiting a response, if it's a resource that you do not need to action, but you need to keep handy, that can be a folder. And then I would archive everything else. So you get an email, you decide where it goes, action, waiting, resources, or I don't need this anymore. That just goes right to filed away or archived. That way, when you open when you set aside time to take care of your emails, you open your email, you click on the action required, all of them will show up. And then as you do them, you file them away.
And this is all in Outlook still.
You can do that all in Outlook. You don't need to add anything else. Yeah.
That's my nugget.
Yeah, well, that's worked really well for me as well, because then you don't forget anything. And when you have a spare moment and you know, like a meeting ends early, you open up your action and there might be 2 or 3 things that you can bang away and it's done. And then I do also appreciate the fact that whatever email system you use, there's incredible searchability functions. So in the filed away, you don't need to file them so meticulously, because you've decided which ones need action and which ones you're going to keep, you know, action, awaiting response, or resources. And when they're no longer in one of those key states, they can get filed away. And if, you know, 3 weeks down the road, somebody says, wasn't there an email about that? You can search for it and find it. But it no longer needs to take up your immediate space, the things that you need to think about now, you know?
Excellent.
Does that answer your question, or do you have any fault? No, it's good.
No. Excellent. Excellent.
That's great. And for anyone who's thinking, okay, how do I do that? I mean, my instinct is immediately to go to YouTube and say how to set up files in Outlook. Just type your question into YouTube. I guarantee there's a tutorial out there somewhere on it. Just, yeah, so that you don't get stuck for the next step. Kathy has a question, Amanda, which is, would you recommend HubSpot as a CRM? And for anyone who doesn't know, a CRM is a customer relationship management tool.
That is a good question. I'm actually in the midst of researching different CRMs as new ones come up and as they change, to see which one is the best for small businesses. CRM tools, when you're a small business, they can be too robust. A lot of times a paid version of a CRM can be overwhelming, and the cost outweighs the benefit that you get from having it. So my biggest recommendation, if when looking into CRMs, is having an objective as to how you're going to use that CRM. What do you want it to do for you? And then you can decide what the best way to go forward. If you're working with a core group of clients that repeat all the time, you can manage that in the kind of more in a more manual process, right? You would just decide, like, okay, after the service is complete, I want to reach out in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever your process is, and then you can do it more manually. And if you're choosing a CRM, you still need to go through that process of deciding how. You still need to have the process. The software is only as smart as what you put into it. So you need to be clear with what you want to get out of it and what you want that system to do for you. And that being said, HubSpot does have a pretty good free CRM. It's an extra step for sure. It doesn't integrate super well into your email. It's something that you have to kind of go into. But it is a fairly good CRM to start off with. But again, I can't stress this enough. You have to know what you want to get out of the system, because they can be so complicated and so overwhelming, and you'll spend so much time and not get the benefits that you're seeking.
Good point. And Elizabeth has a question about Dubsado for client onboarding. I don't know if you've heard of that one. The question is, what's your feedback about Dubsado for client onboarding?
I have not looked into that one yet. That's on my list though, to be.
I have used Dubsado. We were actually used to provide setups for it. It's so, it is a very good tool and it controls everything, but the initial setup for it is very labor intensive. So you have to be all in, I think, to be using Dubsado, but yes, it takes away all of the steps and it just does it automatically and you don't even have to be a part of it. So it's something that you have to commit to. That would be kind of the same as HubSpot, right? It's a lot to learn.
And for
Thanks,
any of
Jenny.
these, sorry, I was gonna say, any of these processes, like you said, it could take 3 months to see the results and to get the simplified system we're looking for. At the beginning, let's be honest, it's not simple or, it's not quick to set them up. And I think, yeah, to Jenny's point.
Absolutely. And I will also mention that you don't have to get it to 100%. If you focus on getting things 80% systemized, that will account for the individuality of each new situation. Once you get to 80 or 90% as to like, this is the process and this is what we do to get success, that's good enough, because you could spend hours trying to get it perfect and the situation will change in 3 months. So try not to get too lost in it, for sure.
So I have a question here. We are looking at automizing, and from the solopreneur or the business owner's point of view, what works, what makes it easier, seamless, but ultimately it is the customer who is experiencing it. And in my business, I work with clients who have access to different devices. There could be language issues and so on. So therefore, so far, I've kept it mostly manual because I accommodate the client's needs and accessibility issues. What happens when a system which works for me is put in place, but may not be effective in terms of the client being fully, being able to use it fully because it works on the client's end? Because there is an assumption made that whatever I have access to, the client does too. So how do you navigate that? That's where I am.
That's a good question. So clarify for me then, where would the system break down? Can you provide like a more specific example?
So for example, the contracts, I'll have to break it down. I already have a manual to explain the contract. It could be a language issue. It could be the client, where the client is, with stress factors involved. So that has been a big issue. Devices that the client may have access to. So I have kind of experienced those, and I've always hesitated to automate. But I'm just wondering, how do you navigate, like, from the client's perspective, instead of just looking at what works for me and what makes it easy for me? Or do you work with your clients in terms of setting it up with regards to the end consumer experience?
Good question. So absolutely, your customer is going to be the most important part of that, because if you have a system that doesn't tailor to them, then it's going to fizzle out. So if there's a part of your business that, like, you can systemize it to a degree, but if there's a part that is very individual and very unique to each client, then you have to respond to that. Because yeah, there's going to be parts of your business that you can't automate because your clients are so unique. But if you automate, or even if you have a system for it, it makes the manual process go faster. So if there's, you send them the contract, as you interact with the client, you can understand whether maybe there's questions to say, what language, or are there any barriers? Maybe there's a part in your a piece in your process or system that says, these are the things, these are the factors that I want to check on. So that will dictate how I continue on, how the rest of this process happens. So yeah, you can't automate things that are going to not align with your customer. I agree that there's going to be some things that just might have to happen manually. But it sounds like you've already gone through the process of kind of laying it out and discovering where the gaps might be.
Mhm.
And that's an important piece to recognize within your system. So if there's, if there's so possible solutions to common things that come up, that can be included in your system, and it can be kind of like a not a mind map, what I want to say, a process flow chart, right? Like if there's accessibility issues, then we have to go through this whole other layer
Okay.
to get to our end goal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. That's often where I have to navigate and put a little bit more time,
Yeah.
which is okay. But as things expand, it becomes more of a challenge to keep that up as a solopreneur. So I have been looking into systems which may integrate those steps, but so far I'm just been doing it manually, which is okay for now, but down into the future, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Amanda or Jenny? I know that there's been some being answered in the chat. Jenny just mentioned the Digital Canada Adoption Grant, I think it is called, and there's a website there. If you receive the newsletter as well, there's the weekend newsletter. We post in that several times about that. Many of our clients have applied. By the way, if you've applied, they haven't yet selected. All right. So I've gotten some emails this week about why they haven't heard back. And I reached out to our contact and they said they haven't selected yet. It might be a few more weeks. So just hold on to that. The good news is it is coming, and Digital Main Street is coming back, just to let you know that as well. We've had word that that's coming back online as well. So these are just basically programs, at least I know in Ontario, and I think the one obviously is Canada-wide, that provide free digital support for small businesses, which is great for our clients. And of course, check out the newsletter. We'll let you know as soon as those grants are available. Any final questions as we wrap up today? I think that you ladies have given us so much great food for thought. Yeah, I'm not sure if you need employees for the Canada Digital Grant. I know people who have applied for it. Oh, one employee. Vicki, is that like the owner, or is like in additional to yourself? I'm not sure about that. I haven't looked that closely at it, but I know the Digital Main Street one, which no longer is just for Main Street, like downtown businesses. That one you don't have to have any employees. So yeah, some good programs out there right now that are helping to support small businesses for sure. It's not an easy time to be a small business owner, and yet there's great opportunities as well, as we've heard today. All right, seeing no further questions, I think we'll leave it there for now. I know folks are probably ready for their lunch. We're almost at that time. So I want to thank Amanda and Jenny for sharing their wisdom, their experience, and some great templates, some great scenarios as well to help us really put into, to illustrate what it is and how this can help us individually, what this means and why it's relevant. So thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I hope that you'll join us soon for another weekend workshop. Thank you, and miigwech.